The Great Smoky Mountains in southern Appalachia straddles the line between Tennessee and North Carolina. Spanning over 800 square miles of dense wilderness and rugged terrain, the Smokies are beautiful, but also potentially dangerous, especially if you ain't top of the food chain. There are an estimated 1,900 bears in this park. That averages to about 2 bears per square mile, making it one of the most bear-dense locations in the country. Today, we will go over 2 stories of folks who were killed by these fluffy yet deadly predators. But before we start, know that although there are many bears here in Appalachia, the chance of actually being attacked by one or turned into a man-witch is actually quite rare. Since the park opened back in the 1940s, only 107 folks have ever been attacked, and only 2 have actually been killed. That being said, although these chunky fellers may be friend-shaped, they are wild animals and apex predators. But with that said, let's get to the stories. The first attack in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park was in the year of my birth, May 21st, 2000. Yeah, I'm 25. Commenter on one of my videos said that I looked like I could be 40 years old. I could cry, man. Glenda Bradley was a 50-year-old school teacher teaching at the Jones Cove Elementary School in Sevier County. And her husband Ralph Hill was 52, a resident of Cosby, Tennessee, which is the town that I was raised in. This story is just way too close to home for me. Now, they may have been in their 50s, but don't let that fool you. We're both avid and experienced hikers and knew the national park very well. Glenda and Ralph used to be married, but divorced back in 1982 for reasons not disclosed to the public. But at some point during the turn of the century, they reconciled and remarried in 1999. And in the next year, 2000, they decided to go on a hiking trip, hoping to further reconnect after their thawing out. The plan was to hike the Little River Trailhead near Elkmont, Tennessee, and reach the Goshen Prong Junction at around 3.7 miles in, and then hike all the way back to their car. They departed at 12 p.m. heading off into the woods, happy to be together again after years apart. After trekking the scenic Little River Trail for about an hour, they reached a scenic spot near Little River. For whatever reason, her husband Ralph decided that he would stop there for a little bit and do a bit of fishing, while Glenda continued the hike upstream. You may think this is a bit odd if you ain't much of a hiker, but it ain't uncommon for folks who hike at different speeds and have different interests on the trail to kind of split up and do your own thing for a little bit and then regroup later on the path. While he wanted to fish, she didn't want to lose momentum and decided to just keep on going for a bit. So although poorly advised, this wasn't something out of the ordinary or strange for these folks. But this would indeed be the last time that Hill would ever speak to his wife again. After about an hour of fishing alone, he returned to the trail to check on his wife. And while trying to catch up to her, he came across her backpack, just sitting there abandoned in the middle of the trail. There is no food mission, nor did the backpack show any signs of damage. Hey, that's a little ominous. A little concerned, he continued along the trail trying to find her. And about 40 yards away up the trail from his fishing spot, he finally found her being mauled by bears. It was a 112-pound mother bear and a 40-pound cub, ripping and biting at Glenda with their long claws and blunt teeth. Upon seeing this, Hill ran up to the bears, screaming, shouting, and waving his arms about. Anything to try to scare the bears off of his wife. He carried no weapons nor bear spray, so intimidation was the only choice he had. But it didn't work. The mama bear stood her ground, charging a few steps towards Hill, snarling and growling, before returning to its initial victim. Will could only sit there and watch and listen to his wife scream and thrash as the bears tore and ripped into her. Reluctantly, he forced himself to leave and head back down the trail sprinting to find some help. He eventually found a hiker that was attached to a Boy Scout troop, telling him the situation and begging him to go get some help. The hiker, of course, agreed and sprinted all the way down to Elkmont Campground to alert the rangers while Hill remained in the area, praying that the bears would leave his wife alone. The Good Samaritan hiker arrived at the ranger station at 5 p.m., and it took the ranger an entire hour to get to Glenda at 6 p.m. But when he got there, Glenda was already dead, and the bears were still there feasting on her and guarding her corpse. Like Hill, the ranger tried to haze the bears off, to no avail. These bears were not backing down. Eventually, more rangers arrived, but these ones had weapons. Due to the aggressive and predatory nature of the bears and the immediate risk to other folks on the trail, the rangers had no choice but to shoot the mother and the cub dead. After the bears were neutralized, the Rangers recovered Glenda's remains and transported her body out as the sun began to set and darkness took over the sky. There were no interviews with Hill after the incident. No quotes, no nothing. But you can imagine the despair and hopelessness that the man most certainly felt. He had just remarried Glenda and lost her again only a year later. Only this time, he lost her permanently. My heart well and truly goes out to that man. The authorities did autopsies on the bears, testing for rabies or anything else that may have set them off. Glenda didn't have food in her pack, so they weren't attracted to that. No, the reason is far more terrifying. Dr. Joe Clark, a wildlife ecologist at UT, says, this was no defensive attack, it was predatory. And Dr. Stephen Herrero, North America's leading black bear attack researcher, says that predatory black bear attacks are extremely rare, and when they do happen, they're often solitary, slow, and persistent. Just like with Glenda, fewer than 10 predatory black bear attacks have ever been reported. Those were in Canada or Alaska. That kind of thing just doesn't normally happen around here. Usually if a black bear attacks you, it's either sick or starving. It has to prey on humans because its teeth is hurt and it can't prey on stronger natural prey, or it's with a cub and was defending it. Glenn did come across a mother bear with her cub. Usually when a mother bear protects her cub, the cub and the mother don't eat the victim. So this was highly irregular. The death of Glenda was a heartbreaking anomaly and a reminder that bears and bear cubs, although cute and cuddly looking, are animals. They are apex predators and are incredibly unpredictable. Only one other person has been killed by black bears in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. This is Patrick Madura. Patrick was 40 years old and was from Elgin, Illinois. He had a master's degree in biology and was trained as an EMT and a firefighter. Not to mention he was a pretty skilled outdoorsman, so not the kind of guy you would expect to have problems out in the backcountry. But as you'll soon discover, nature doesn't really care how skilled you are or how much you prepare. In September of the year 2020, Patrick drove to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, planning to embark on a multi-day backpacking trip, hiking the Hazel Creek Trail. Hazel Creek Trail is among the most scenic, but also the most remote trails on the Appalachian Trail. The entire trail is about 14.7 miles of very dense and steep Appalachian brush. Patrick had the ferry in from across Fontana Lake to get to the trailhead, and from there he would hike 8 miles down to a place called Campsite 82. It is unknown how long he hiked or exactly when he got to camp, but most backpackers aim to set up their camp around 5, 6, or 7, somewhere in the evening before the sun goes down. So around this time, Patrick slipped off his heavy rucksack, his shoulders and his ankles hurting from a long day on the trail. He set up his tent, ate his food for the night, and climbed in his sleeping bag, intent on resting for the night to prepare for another long day of hiking, deep in the Appalachian wilderness. Unfortunately, he would never get the chance, as this would be the last backpacking trip he would ever take, and Campsite 82 would be his final resting place. 3 days later, on September the 11th, a backpacking troop hiking the Hazel Creek Trail approached Campsite 82 later in the afternoon, where they came across Patrick's tent. At first they thought nothing of it, just another hiker out on the trail camping, until they realized his tent was wide open, with no one inside of it. Now this didn't really raise any immediate alarms or anything, as there were no signs of struggle inside the tent. No rips, no clutter, no nothing. And I myself have been dumb enough to accidentally leave my tent when I go off to tinkle. So the troop seeing this was odd, but not immediately concerning. So they shrugged it off and continued along their way until one of the hikers looked over across the creek and saw a black bear feeding on scattered human remains. And I mean that literally, they were scattered. The bear had torn Patrick to pieces, and the bear was still eating him. Thoroughly and rightly disturbed and horrified, the group ran off to find safety. Once they did, and once they had cell reception, they called the ranger station and reported the incident. Now this was around the afternoon, 12 to 4. It took until midnight for the rangers and the wildlife organization to make it up to Campsite 82, where the bear was still there. I have a tick on me. Due to the aggressive nature of the attack, the rangers probably rightly made the decision to euthanize the bear. The North Carolina Chief Medical Examiner concluded that Patrick died likely due to trauma caused by the bear. Yeah, no shit. Now the thing is, officials still aren't sure if the bear broke into his tent and drug him out and continued dragging him until he was on the other side of the creek, or if he was attacked somewhere outside of the shelter. Given that the inside of the tent was undisturbed, not to mention the tent was undamaged in general. What I believe happened is that he probably went outside of the tent in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and then was attacked out there, outside of his tent. It would make more sense than if the bear like ripped open his tent and drug him out. And as an avid backpacker myself, I too find myself having to take a little tinkle or a little nightly glory in the middle of the night, so I can see this happening. And from there, the beast probably drugged poor Patrick to the other side of the creek and started mauling him alive. A horrible way to die for sure. And just like the last story, this bear killed him purely for predatory reasons. So the only two people that have ever been killed by bears in the Smoky Mountain National Park were done so by predatory bears. So very rare, but still very terrifying. But I guess it's comforting that after all these years, it's only really been two folks. The Great Smoky Mountain National Park is the most visited and the most popular national park in the entire world, receiving around 12 to 24 million visits every year. And it has about 355,000 local residents. So eventually, in these mountains, man and beast will meet. And it's not uncommon to see bears and bear cubs while driving through the parkway. In the city of Gatlinburg, which is called the gateway to the Smokies, it's known for having black bears kind of just waltz into the middle of town and start ransacking trash cans, the various candy stores along the strip, and just in general not caring about the people walking right past them on the street. They've gotten very used to people. These bears are magnificent and noble beasts, and you should always respect them. They ain't your friends. They are animals, and they should be treated as such. I would advise anyone who frequently hikes in bear country either bring a weapon or a firearm, or at the very least bear spray, because these stories show that even the skilled and experienced are no match for the raw predation of an apex predator. Speaking of which, it's going to get dark in like 30 minutes, so if you guys like today's video and you enjoy creepy true crime stories, people going missing in the woods in the Appalachian region, those kind of stories, or if you like seeing folks camping in the southern Appalachian region or exploring ancient ruins and ghost towns in these regions, give me a subscribe because I do all those things on my channel. And if any of you have any good tips for not attracting bears or fending off bears, let us know in the comments, as well as just, telling us in general what you think about these experiences. And I do hope you all have enjoyed this, considering that I'm out here hiking in the 99-degree heat for y'all, just to have a cool setting for the story. If you do prefer this style over me just sitting in my room, let me know and I'll do more of this. I'm going to go head on to my campsite before I get stuck out here and I get turned into a bear burrito. So wish me luck, and you have a good one.